Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton Solon coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky again. I have a subscriber that recently commented on a video, and he said something about these Muppet men, these two-dimensional type creatures that I had heard about once before, and I never really had run across anybody with a story that I could speak to. So Nigel has agreed to come on and tell us some about his story. I think he's a pretty smart sounding fellow, and I think you'll enjoy this a lot. So anyway, I'd like to introduce you to Nigel and let him tell us his story about these Muppet men and various other things. Hello, Nigel.
Hey, Brandon, thank you, man. I appreciate that introduction.
Well, thank you, man, for coming on. I tell you what, a lot of people are sharing more and more than ever, but in the past, and I just think it's awesome because it's kind of like we're blowing the cover off of the enemy's attacks on us, where he can't make us keep it all secret anymore, and people are beginning to learn, and also being able to battle against these things, and it's not just all swept under the rug. So much of this stuff is secrets in people's lives, and it kind of is a form of bondage in a way. And most of the time when someone talks about any encounters they have with the supernatural, it's almost by naysayers pushed off to be a shameful thing, and that's not really the case much anymore. Because we just ignore the negative, and we know what we see. I know what I've seen, and I think you know what you've seen and you have encountered, and I think that the spirit realm and the supernatural realm is more real than this realm. And you got a fascinating story, what I've heard of it so far, and I'd like for you to just kind of start where you were a little while ago, talking about that rabbit hole and the Mason connection and what have you, and just relax and tell your story just like you were a little bit ago, and just lead into your Muppet Men thing, and tell it however you think you want to tell it.
Sure, I appreciate that. All right, well, I'll start from the beginning, really. I've already been going through these experiences since I was 8, but it wasn't until I was about 24 years old when I started getting frequent visits from various Masonic groups.
I'm going to have to cut in right here for just a second and explain that when we did this interview, it was around 5:30, something like that, in California where he was. So the streaming the video and audio back where I could capture it was a little glitchy in spots, but it gets better. So I'm not going to cut out what he says. I could kind of, explain what he was saying, but I want to leave it to where you can make out some of it. And he basically talks about this Masonic stuff is in his background, and they kept trying to induct him, and he met this Kathy O'Brien who said they want something, or you're rich, or one of those two reasons why they would be trying to get you. And then he leads into the encounters and experiences he had, and the audio clears up in the video. We changed the resolution of the video so that it could stream a little bit better. And I leave all that in because I don't like to cut up someone's interview to where it looks like I'm trying to make it look like something for my belief system. I'm leaving the video intact, the interview intact, so just kind of ignore the little glitchy stuff and realize that it clears up fairly quickly and when he gets to the stories and the kind of stuff that I kind of like getting for you all is the stories and hearing about how these encounters go down, stuff like that. So be patient, ignore the glitch stuff, try to pick out some of the things that he says, and thank you.
I don't know if people are aware, but the Christian Scientists, I know there are stories that they are against Masons, and I believe they are to a point, but I also put them into that group. The Freemason, and then being African American, all of that it was so frequent that I had to ask, stories. I got online and I started asking, who are these people? Why do they want me? And I actually got a hold of Kathy O'Brien, if anyone's familiar with her, and the David Icke. She's mentioned yet. So I spoke with her, and she told me her story. And she told me either I'm very wealthy or I have something that they want. And here's where it pretty much gets pretty much interesting. I've always known for the government. And that's what I wanted to be since I was very young. I started looking into it when I was 9. Would come around me, some of my mom's friends, and say, you know what you're to do. You already know what you're supposed to do. You're to live up to that. And I really didn't understand what they were saying, but that's all they would tell me. And as I grew up, one gentleman came up one day, and he told me that man cannot think of anything that doesn't and I started thinking, and he was like, yes, anything you think about, it exists. So everybody. And then he said, on, and he asked me another question, and he said, if you were in a cave, a dark cave, with only one flashlight, and the light on the walls or around the cave and see what was making the noises, or would you keep the light off and pretend that they weren't there? And I said, light, and find out what was there with me. So he said, okay. He smiled and said, we will proceed then. So he started telling me things that existed, different types of beings. And this is when I'm 24 years old.
Right.
Okay, so I said that my father was also a Mason, and visited frequently by these things and told what I was supposed to do and invited to become a Mason. So just to set that stage, I need to go back now to when I was 8 years old.
Okay, hold on before you do that. Your audio is trying to cut out and it's kind of being jumpy. If you would hover your mouse, or are you on a laptop or?
Yeah, it's a laptop.
Okay, if you hover your cursor over the screen, you'll see a little bar pop up on the top.
Okay.
Okay. Now, there's a little person, a microphone, a camera, and then there's a little bar thing there. If you click on the bar thing, you can adjust your bandwidth.
Okay.
What's it set at now?
It's on the highest level.
Okay. Maybe we should adjust it down where it would keep up, like halfway or something, where it can kind of keep up with the with it.
Right.
And then maybe your audio won't cut out, because it was cutting out quite bad. Sometimes, depending on what time of the day we do these kind of things, it kind of affects, like if high traffic time and stuff like that. I don't know what time it is there. What time is it?
Right. It's 5 o'clock p.m.
Yeah, that's probably not a good time on a Sunday, but.
I hear you.
Okay.
Am I still cutting out right now?
I think it might do better now. I'm not sure. So I guess you can pick back up where you just started, when you were 8 years old.
Okay. So both of my parents were Air Force, and we had moved into base housing in Las Vegas, Nevada. And my brother started complaining about people walking around in the house. We woke up the next morning, and that's when he told me and my sister, and we kind of looked at him, like, are you not really crazy, but, we've never discussed ghosts or anything like that. It happened the second night as well. he said there were plenty of people walking around in the house last night. And, because in about a month until we started experiencing these things ourselves. And it got to the point where every single night I was visited by, I'd say, some type of, what we call them ghosts. And they were interacting with us all the time, speaking to us, tapping us, sitting on our beds. I mean, it was physical as well as verbal. And then at the same time, and this is where these Muppet beings come in. I remember in your story, Benton, you talked about this window or this portal opening up. I think it was to your left. You saw this silhouette of a being.
Right.
I had a similar situation. Went up right next to me, and the wall would become kind of liquid.
Wow.
As solid. And then it would just open up, and I could see into this portal or whatever. I could see most of it like setting. And I would see these little beings and the silhouette, so it's black. And I would see where the eyes were supposed to be. And they would come out maybe like a silver tongue. Then I would have this feeling come over me. It was like the room would get very, very thick.
Yeah.
And then you could feel it. And I remember it scaring me almost, just halfway to death. But with two, if you will, place. And sometimes there would be other kids there, two-dimensional beings sitting there. And the reason why I call them the Muppet Men is because the Muppet show was the only way I could describe them to my parents.
Right.
They were like Muppets, not real, but like arms, two legs. Various sizes. I think the tallest one I saw was maybe about 8 feet. The smallest ones were, I'd say, close to 3 feet, 4 feet. And they would speak to me telepathically. But also, when I would hear them, so it's very interesting. But they would play these games to me. I don't know if they were really malevolent or, were they trying to teach me something? But every time I would go with them, I would learn something new. Whether it was telekinesis, whether it was telepathy, or even just the ways and the workings of the universe and our physical planet. I remember learning these things as a young child with them. But they would, one of the first games they played with me was kind of like a hide and go seek. And they would always come from the shadows,
Yeah.
They would never, it would barely just, it was almost like they were sticking out as if someone was peeking from behind a wall or something like that. So I rarely saw their whole physical body, if you will, if it was physical at all.
So can you describe what they looked like?
Sure. I don't know if you've ever seen that the series Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
The old one, the original. There was this cone-headed Cylon that looked more human. He wasn't robotic. He was like a counselor or something. He had two eyes, and the eyes would move back and forth instead of that one eye.
Right.
I can't remember his name, but he was like a cone-headed Cylon, if you will.
Yeah. Well,
Lights up in his head.
well, I don't know if I know what that looks like, but so he had a cone-like head.
They all had oval. I'd say more ovular. Just oval-headed.
Right.
Shape of the head.
Was he like a shadow being? Was he black?
Yeah.
He
Yes.
was. And what
You could not see through.
and what did the eyes look like?
They looked like our eyes, but a light came at them, more like a silverish light, like a glow, like someone had a candle, or a flashlight within their head, and it was shining outwards, but without the.
Whoa. Dang, man, that didn't
Yeah.
scare you? What?
It didn't. I think because I was a kid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're more accepting of things that you see when you're a kid, even though it might frighten you at first.
Well, yeah.
And no harm came to me.
Right.
But what scared me was the feeling I had in my chest or in my solar plexus, if you will. Right around my belly button area. I think it's the third chakra.
Yeah.
And what got me was this kind of paralysis state I would go into before entering this portal, and not remembering that I had entered the portal, just waking up on that side. And you know it's real. You know you're not dreaming because you're right there in it and you're interacting with these beings.
So they would actually take you through the portal to where they were.
Right. They would never come to our side. You know?
So they would look in through the portal and then bring you into where they're at instead of them come into your room.
Right.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow,
so,
man.
You know? And I would see them standing in the portal. Sometimes I wouldn't even see them, though. I would see like a park-like setting, and I would see other kids, you know, in that park. And then I would just enter that portal, and then all of a sudden this lesson would begin. You know, so it was really interesting. And so they were like various sizes, about 3 to 4 feet tall, up to like 8 feet tall. You could not see through them. Sometimes you could see these little eye slits that, emulated this light. And they would speak in clicks and chirps when they did speak, but it was mostly telepathic communication.
Whoa. They would speak in clicks and chirps?
Yeah, it was like little clicks and little chirps and back and forth to each other.
I don't know if you just seen that video I made on the demons hiding in the furniture.
Oh, no.
I was talking about an encounter I had. I didn't see it, but I heard it, and it was clicking and chirping like you're talking about. And then my wife got shocked. She put her arm over onto my pillow, and she got zapped like an electrical charge got her. But I heard that clicking and chirping, and I was looking around for what the heck made that sound. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the language that they did speak in.
Yeah.
And chirps. So that's amazing.
I knew it wasn't human, you know what I'm saying, and I know what I heard. Because I was getting onto the ground. I was going to do some sit-ups because I'm getting fat, you know. So when I got onto the floor, I was about ready to start doing some sit-ups, and I heard this, like, and it was clicking and chirping, and kind of an insectoid sounding, kind of like you would hear on the movies or something. So I was looking for it, and then my wife, she put her arm over onto my pillow because I was down on the floor, and something went like zzz, and shocked her. I mean, really hard. It's almost like they were trying to set something up, some electromagnetic something, where if I laid my head on the pillow, they could paralyze me or something. I'm guessing only, but I know what I heard, and I know what happened to her, and it scared her because something really shocked her, and at the time, I didn't tell her what I heard because I thought it would scare her worse, and because she was freaked out. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's interesting that they click and chirp. I think that's their way of, many of those type beings, they communicate, if they do a verbal communication, is clicking and chirping type language, and then they mostly communicate through telepathy.
Sure.
All right, you go ahead. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No worries, man. So this would continue every single night, that they would come and get me. It was around, actually, I'd say around dusk, So I would have these ghosts, these apparitions, and these other beings come in from, I'd say, around the witching hour, 11:30 and on. And then as I was finally relieved of them, this portal would open up. My room would get even thicker. And I remember just even saying it out loud all the time. Oh my gosh, they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And then all of a sudden I would go into this state of being, and sure enough, the wall would open up. You'd see it become liquidy. You could actually feel it like someone dropped a stone in water. You'd see it ripple and then whoosh.
That's incredible, man. And you were going through this. Did you ever talk to your parents about it?
Sure did. And they would always believe me. They would just look at me and say yes, like they understood. But they couldn't do anything about it. I cried out a few times, but it's as you know, when you go through this stuff, it's like everything is muffled. No one can hear you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
My brother and I shared the same room. He wouldn't even wake up, while all this was going on.
Was he going through this? Did they do this to him?
I wonder. I've spoken about it even several months ago, and he was like, "I don't remember. I just don't remember." So I don't know what was going on with him, but he has these memories and these fears. You know, he just doesn't know why. So I assume he has gone through something.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would hide. I remember the first game they played with me was like this hide and go seek, and I was in this. It seemed like I was in people's backyards. You know, I remember these high fences, and I was walking through these backyards, and they would come out of these shadows so I could see them physically, and then duck back into the shadows and disappear. But they were trying to tell me to feel where they were. It's almost like use your intuition or use your feeling center and locate us that way. Quit trying to use your physical eyes to find us. And that was my first lesson with them. So I would become familiar with their energy imprint, if you will, their frequency. So anytime they were near, I would know it. And we played that game for, several times when they would take me. I remember other times too, it was like they would connect me to inanimate objects, like rocks and trees and things like that. They weren't really moving, but they would allow me to feel the life force within those things. Tell me, they would say, I would get this imprint in my mind that said, do you understand it to those? And they would say, try to move it. And I remember them, I was trying to move it like mentally, and they would say, no, that's not the way. I would kind of get, it felt like they were almost laughing at me, not in a joking way, but they were amused that I was trying to use my mind. And they said, no, you have to connect with that and use your heart. And once I felt this connection to these trees and these stones, then it was like I was being pulled towards them, towards these stones, instead of them moving towards me. So I remember being in a riverbed with these cobblestones or these small little rocks. And all of the rocks were moving I was really moving towards them, but it sounded like they were moving towards me. So they were teaching me, I guess, psychokinesis and all these things I'm to remember. But it was the feeling I was to remember. But, yeah, like I said, it would happen every night. I never felt like I was going to be harmed. But there are also other things, too, that were connecting with me. And this is at the same time that had a different vibration in these beings. And those are what people are knowing now as shadow beings. Being held down in your bed and pressed up against the wall and, things like that. I had these physical encounters with these things at the same time. And just remember them walking through the house as well. And this is when my parents would actually see them too. And they were startled by these things. And that's the first time I ever saw my mother actually put olive oil on the walls, in the shape of a cross or formation of a cross.
Right. Now the shadow beings, are you saying that the shadow beings were different than the Muppet men?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. At least the vibration felt different. The Muppet men all had the same size and same shapes to their body, with different heights. The height was different. But these shadow beings, you could actually see horns or these things sticking out of their faces. Like
whoa.
That's the only way I can describe them, as horns. Like these reptilian-looking things or what people would probably describe as demons. Right. And I remember them things walking through the house with long fingers and just really intimidating. And you could feel them come on very strong. And those are the things that would hold me down in bed and pretty much instill fear, to where I would have to pray and just ask for the Christ energy to come and intervene. And those things scared me. Yeah. But the Muppet never scared me. Yeah. It was after that I started having other encounters with various types of beings, even humanoid beings that I would see coming through various portals as well. I remember being here in Corona, California, maybe about 60 minutes up north from where I am now in San Diego County, and just sitting in front of a pickup truck with the tailgate was down, and my wife's cousin was having their parents were having an anniversary party, and I was just having a typical conversation with the people out there, and we were sitting in this cul-de-sac. The truck was behind me with the tailgate open, so you could sit down, in the bed of the truck. But all of a sudden, this portal opened, and I see this man and this boy just standing there, and it was a white light around them in the portal. You could see into the portal. and they were shocked to see that I could see them, that I noticed them. And we just sat there staring at each other, I'd say for about 3 seconds, and all of a sudden I got really nauseous in the pit of my stomach again, around my solar plexus, and I fell backwards into the truck. And I remember in my mind saying, do not pass out, because I felt like I wanted to. And then as soon as I kind of sat up again, they were gone.
So this happened like outside by your truck?
Yes, it was outside.
And a portal opened up and you saw in it.
Exactly. And I was looking around to see who else noticed this, but everyone was just carrying on like business as usual. And they stopped, but they were only looking at me because I had noticed them. And I know it was because of my experiences from when I was young. I've never lost the ability to see into these other dimensions or portals. And I can also feel when things come through, when I don't notice them coming through portals, but when things are around me that are unseen, I'll feel them and take notice to these things. Yeah. But it's not the first time that I've witnessed things coming through portals, right, and manipulating and interacting in our world. Right. So, yeah, I'd say from the age of 9 to about 11 is when I had every single night contact with these Muppet beings. And I also believe they're affiliated with some type of abduction phenomenon, because at that same moment I started, I wouldn't say fearing, but I had this affiliation with white owls. And if you listen to many abduction stories, you'll hear them talk about, I saw this white owl, sitting in a tree or in my room or whatever. And I know that these other beings will pose as white owls before an abduction event, kind of to calm you down or to get you used to something that you're familiar with.
These other beings, such as not the Muppet Men, but some other beings would come with them. It would pose as owls.
They wouldn't come with these Muppet Men, but at the same time, at the same age, I would start having these experiences with these grays. Yeah. What people, I guess, refer to as grays now.
And they would pose as owls.
Yes.
Wow.
They would pose as owls.
Yeah.
But to me, I know people have, these horror stories with them, and I'm not going to, devalue those stories at all. But I've never had a malevolent experience with these beings yet. But I do have an affiliation with these white owls. I love them. Yeah. And respect the white owls for some reason. Yeah. So I come to the conclusion that I have been abducted. I need to go through some hypnosis or something one of these days to uncover that. But
yeah, well, you better be careful with that hypnosis, though, man, because it can lower your guard in such a way that something else can take over, and so that's a very dangerous thing. What's interesting about the owls is that, and because I know people have experiences with the reptilians. And then I've been covering some of this Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff like that here lately. And anyway, I was talking about some stuff in Isaiah on a video here recently, and I was talking about the word Seder. The only time that word Seder it appears in the scriptures is in Isaiah, I think it's 34 or something. It's in that video. But anyway, the word Seder in the Hebrew means hairy. And this creature that they're talking about lives out in the wilderness away from people, and it says that they howl to their fellows. And I noticed that every time you see someone going Bigfoot hunting, they're mimicking that howling, and then they say that the Bigfoot howl to each other and they call to their fellows. You know what I'm saying? But the word Seder means hairy, so it's some type of humanoid hairy type creature. And like if you look the word Seder up, it would show you like a hairy beast type goat bottom with a humanoid top part with the horns and what have you. But another thing that's in that area it talks about this wilderness area that had gotten destroyed and it turns back into wilderness, but it said that it becomes a habitation for dragons, and it starts mentioning these reptilian-type beings, and it also mentions the owl, the screech owl, and talks about the owl a few times right there. So, in some kind, in a way, I see in that a hairy-type creature that's a beast type thing, because these are not humanoid, these are not human things that they're talking about, and the reptilian type creature, and then the owl, like, you know, because a lot of people have the abduction phenomenon, talk about seeing these owls. So I just think that it's kind of a way that it's being mentioned in Isaiah in kind of like a visual context, trying to tell us about this. You know what I'm saying? These several type of beings that they don't live with us; they live kind of out away from us. You know, and so the owl thing is very interesting. That comes up a lot in the abduction phenomenon. So anytime you see an owl, be wary. Like when you were saying a minute ago that you started praying, I would pray every time. I don't care who it is that comes, because I would want to try those spirits, you know what I'm saying? Because you never know. They can be crafty and trick. You know, if we only went by how we feel, we would be running a dangerous thing there, because it certainly can be dangerous even if it feels okay. And that, to me, it's unbelievable. I mean, that you've had some serious contact with. I mean, when your wall turns into gel-looking, melty, and like a stone being thrown into it, that's very incredible. I know that I have one video that's called "Extra-Dimensional Beings in My Room," and the wall behind this guy's bed basically turns like that, and there's a door opens up, and these beings are leaning over his headboard, scanning his head. He felt like they were scanning because they had just some kind of little device that had these lights on it, and it had one light in the middle, so they somehow, these creatures are able to do that, and sometimes they have technology. Now, in your encounters, did you ever see any kind of technology that these creatures had, or these beings?
I've never seen any technology.
All right.
But sorry, a little bit of feedback. I can hear that. Just the technology that they were telling me about, you know, how to use your mind and your heart to manipulate things. So I know they've had some type of technology. And there was times, actually, I felt like I was on some type of craft, you know, so they had to have some type of technology, high level, definitely, I believe that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I'll tell you, too, there were times, as you know, after I turned 24, this phenomenon kept up with me, and I felt this technology in my physical body. I could feel things happening to me, you know, that it was technological. You know, that way, definitely.
Did you ever feel like they used any kind of like microwave something on you? Because I know sometimes I know people that say that they're sitting there and all of a sudden they feel like something's vibrating them, like they feel a vibration, like they have a directional energy weapon or something pointed at them, and it's like a precursor to something else happening, like they're trying to manipulate you so they can pull you through. Some kind of deal like that.
I felt that in 2006 at nighttime. I actually woke my wife up and I said, they're doing something to me. And I could feel this pounding on my chest, and I could even hear it in the room. It wasn't too long after that, I'd say several weeks, where I now have diabetes, you know, because of that as well. But I felt that. I actually went and spoke to a doctor about it, and I told him what was happening to me. And I mentioned the word scalar technology. And he looked at me like I was nuts, and I thought he was going to call me nuts. But he said, how do you know about that technology? Because you shouldn't know about that. We're just now discovering this. And he told me not to speak to anyone else about this technology. But he said,
Wow.
he asked me how I contracted diabetes, and I told him, I said, this is the way I did it. I know it. And he said, yes. He goes, I believe you. And this is a medical in Arizona.
So you mentioned something to a doctor, and he basically was surprised you knew something about scalar technology. What exactly is that?
It's if anyone's ever familiar with Dr. Stephen Greer, he talks about it in one of his books when him and his partner were, and even his dog, were given cancer after experiencing this type of technology. And I brought this up, not Stephen Greer's name, but when I went to Arizona, being a diabetic, I wanted to get insulin out there. And they ask you the basic questions, how did you get diabetes, who in your family has it, just your habits and all of that, your background information. And I told them, my father may have had it, but basically I'm the only one that has it. And I had mentioned the scalar technology to this nurse that I saw first, and he understood immediately. He said, listen, do not talk about this technology to anybody else. This is in 2006.
Wow.
And he gave me 2 names, and he said, one doctor may not be here. This is when I went to Sedona, Arizona. I was out there doing some work with the Hopi Indians, and needed some meds, and went to this doctor. So he gave me 2 other doctors' information, and I went and saw one of them. And him and his assistant were sitting there in regular basic checkup, asking me the same simple questions. And he asked me who in my family had diabetes, and I said, my father may have. I'm not sure. But he goes, okay, well, how do you think you got diabetes? And I was a vegetarian at the time. I'm not a sweet, craving person. I love spicy food. So I told him it was given to me. This is after refusing to become a Mason several times. And finally, I started hearing the pulses in my torso, my body. So I went over there and I told him, hey, this is what I think happened. And he was wearing glasses. I remember him tilting his glasses down and looking over him. And he goes, how do you know about that?
The scalar technology. So
Yeah,
they basically told you not to talk about it. See, you were cutting out earlier when you were talking about the Mason stuff.
Right.
So you basically have Mason stuff in your background. And your father was a Mason?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And they've tried to draw you into this Mason thing, and you refuse to do it, basically.
Yes, several times. And anyone that knows the Masons or their history and all of that, they know that they don't come recruiting. So basically, you join them, and if you have something, you can join at a basic level, but if they're coming to recruit you, as I found out, there's something that they need from you. They can use you in a certain type of way. So when I was over there, I just needed some meds and told him about the scalar technology. And the medical doctor told me, we're just now discovering this technology and how it can impact you physically, emotionally, and mentally. And he goes, how do you know about that? And he pointed to me. And I told him, just very little. I said that my father is Masonic. I was told about these things through other means, if you will. And he told me, never speak about these things. He goes, we're just discovering this. Do not speak about it. So I don't know what he knew. But after that, I got a visit. I was over there doing some freelance work in Sedona. And I had a visit in my office. And it was by a Knights Templar. And he just stood there. He came to my room. And he stood there looking at me with this little grin on his face. And I asked him how I could help him. And he goes, you know why I'm here. That's all he said. And he goes, I said, yes, I know why you're here. And he goes, I know you think we're evil, but we're not. He goes, you need to join us. So that's when I said, no.
And where did he visit you at?
What's that?
Where did he visit you at?
I was in Sedona, Arizona.
And he just approached you out of the blue at your home, or?
No, I was actually in the center. I was doing intuitive work, psychic intuitive work. I do that when I went there, I was trying to look into that type of work.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've always had these abilities since I was very young. And when they started looking for me, the Masons started trying to recruit me at the age of 24. And there's some things I can't even get into. Just what happened at that age. I don't even know what it would cause if I were to reveal that type of stuff. But I was being heavily recruited by these Masonic orders, various ones, and refusing to go into that. But I've always had this psychic abilities, if you will. I like to refer to it as seeing. So I refer to myself as a seer. And I went to Sedona to, my intentions were to speak to the natives over there and just see what type of medicinal plants and things that they had to offer. So while I was there, I needed insulin. I was running out of insulin. So I made some phone calls and was told where to go to get some insulin. Started talking about the scalar technology because it was 2006. I had maybe a month having diabetes at that time. And I always knew I could beat it because also I was always told that there's a cure for everything on this planet. So I understood that there was. So I was searching for it. Right. So while I was there, just being a tourist, if you will, you know, Sedona is known for their psychics and spirituality and all that stuff. That's the community over there. They're more open to these things. Phenomena, I hate to call them UFOs, but ETVs and beings that are not classified as human, but humanoid.
Right.
So while I was there, I got my first reading in my life. I had a psychic do a reading for me, and it was terrible. You know, I was like, this is crazy. I can do this. I know more about people just by walking past them than this reading that you gave me. So I stopped into a New Age store while I was there, and I inquired about becoming a reader and working for them, a psychic. And the owner told me, you know, she wanted me, that you can give me a reading. She goes, I just want to know about my daughter. She goes, tell me about my daughter. That's all she told me. And I told her about her daughter. And she goes, tell me about my son. So I told her about her son. And she goes, if you move, she asked me where I was from. I told her San Diego. She goes, if you move here, I'll hire you. So I moved there. And I moved there about a month later and worked for them for about 8 months. But while I was there in this psychic store, if you will, the psychic business, they found me again, the Masons. And that's when he came and just sat in my chair. And he goes, you know why I'm here? That's all he said. And that's when that conversation picked up. And I told him, well, you're here. I know why you're here. And he said, you know, we're not evil. We're not like they say on the internet and what people think about us. And he goes, as a matter of fact, I'm leaving to Brazil, and I'll be back in a week, and I want your answer. And sure enough, he appeared in my office again 1 week later and wanted my answer. And again, I told him no.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're not doing that.
Yes.
It sounds to me, Nigel. Now I know that my subscribers and the people that a good portion of the people who watch my videos, their take on this is going to be that you seem to have some gifts, and where you have resisted the Mason thing is great, because that could cost your soul, kind of thing. This is the take I know that's gonna when I post this video, there's going to be comments, and you're going to have to ignore the negative, and you know what I'm saying, don't let, because sometimes I interview people and they get the negative comments they come on my videos, on like when I told my encounters and things like that. Now, and myself, and there's going to be several or many people that are going to encourage you to seek out the Christ thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
To use your gifts, that's the way, that will be the direction you could go, to use your gifts in the most positive way possible, because it sounds like God has gifted you. That's my take on it. I feel like the Lord has given you some gifts, and you're a very intelligent man. You seem to be a very articulate man, and you have a really good ability to understand the spirit realm, and you definitely know about it. So, being Christ-centered, like when you said you called on that Christ, the way that you said it, I'd have to go back and look. If you're Christ centered, then He will help you develop those gifts in a way that would be beneficial to people. And I just want to throw that out there because I know I know what the comments are going to start, what they're going to look like, and I tell you this, I won't let no one be, what would I say? I guess if anybody's rude, to an extreme level, I will delete their comments and block them. I don't tolerate that kind of thing, but people can have their opinions. I don't keep people's opinions off the stuff, but I know people are going to encourage you to seek the Christ part. You know what I'm saying, and I don't want to ambush you and with that kind of thing. With the Bible part, I've asked you to give your story, so I don't want to do that. I think that would be kind of wrong to do that. But that I would encourage you to seek Christ out to develop your gifts, and it's pretty cool though. I mean that you're looking to the Hopi Indians and people like that. They're extremely interesting, and they definitely know stuff. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's fascinating. So when you went down there, what did you learn?
Well, just from them, they're in such a state right now that they really can provide a lot of help beyond the normal means. This is we use this stevia instead of sugar, and things that I had already known. But when I was there, I had actually been able to participate in the first Hopi and Mayan rain dance, if you will. That it was the first time happening, so I was a participant in that, and I got to learn or really reconnect with my native side as well, being Creole. I'm French Indian and Black, so we had this. Well, I'm not gonna lie. There was voodoo in my family, and also Christianity in my family as well. It depended on, I guess, which side you took. But as far as malintent from the voodoo side, it wasn't really there. But I know there was tampering with the dark energies, if you will. So even me myself, I was brought up Christian in a Christian church, very Christian. Went to church every Sunday. I left the church, I will admit, when I was 16 because things started getting blurry. Things didn't make sense. So I had to find my own answers. But I will say that I have come back, and I won't say religiously speaking. I wouldn't call myself a religious person at all. And I understand what you were talking about, with the possibility of attacks and things from, the comments and all that. And that's fine. But I would say that I am in the Christ energy as far as I understand that. And I do call upon Christ, and bathe in that energy as well. But I do understand, too, that just being human and everything has polarities. So I always acknowledge both sides, my light and my dark. And I feel I am, and I know I'm a light being. I know this. I practice light, and I never practice, the dark arts. And my intentions are for human beings, the upheaval, of this light, so we can progress as humans and go where we're supposed to go as far as our spiritual nature and our evolution. So that's my intentions. But there are dark things that do come. I do have, and I am aware of dark energies that do speak to me, whether it's something that they want me to do or something like that, and I will not fulfill those things because then you have a contract with these beings. I'll tell them to go away, but they're always around us, and I am no longer uncomfortable with them because I understand their vibration, and I see them as beings that are very slow to evolve as far as their light. But I also see them as necessary because I am light, and I don't think you can know yourself as light unless there is darkness around you. You know, if I'm a light being and I go into all light, how am I going to distinguish myself from the other light?
Yeah.
So I see them there as a tool, if you will. So I try not to judge them, but I have lost my fear of them. Not saying I can't be startled. If one sneaks up on me or something, I'm going to be startled. But my intrinsic fear of them, I no longer have, and I do not work with them at all. I refuse.
Yeah, I mean, some people can't understand that never have encountered stuff like that, man. I've encountered them several times, and it's very, very scary. You know, I jump first, and then I start calling on the Lord. You know what I'm saying? But last time I encountered one, other than that chirping thing, because I really didn't see that, but last time I encountered one, it was very, very close to me, like 2.5 feet, something away from my face. I mean, I could see his pupils, and and he was dark, he was a shadow being, but he was solid. I didn't realize that they were solid. I mean, I could have touched him; he had flesh, but he was so black. He was so black that he was a shadow being, but solid, made of dark matter or something. I don't know. But he had eyes like human eyes, and it had like a dirty white iris and pupil. But anyway, he was so close that when I was trying to adjust around in the recliner in the living room to go to sleep, and I opened my eyes, and he was right there. And I flipped the recliner over. I jumped, and the recliner flipped over, and I rolled out, and I jumped up, But, I mean, some people was like, why didn't you rebuke it? It's like, shoot, I was jumping. That's why. I was scared.
But you know what's amazing to me? Because even hearing your story before, and I remember saying that girls, this is call them, and you heard this growl, this ungodly growl, that if it was physical, you would have died.
Yeah.
I think that was the word.
It was a roar. It was a tremendous roar. That was more scarier than the beings. It was more scarier than Darrow or the shadow being. I thought in my mind, and I try to explain that the best I can, if you were to look at what made that sound, you would die. And that's the feeling I got, and I didn't want to see it. And part of what scared me, too, is that it scared them. The Darrow that had a hold on me, and the being that was in the door, that was a shadow demonic entity, And if they're scared, there's something serious about that. Had someone, the old lady knocking on the window there. She's always got to try to get her jab in there when I'm on the interview here. But those entities are very scary. But that roar, I don't know what made that sound. But I tell you what, it was a huge sound, worse than a T-Rex on Jurassic Park. It made that sound like a kitty cat. It was incredibly. Oh, Dana, don't do that. Okay, sorry about that, man. I had someone trying to get my attention. It's like, come on now, I'm working here. All right, so anyway, man, so you've rejected this Mason stuff. You've had encounters with these supernatural entities throughout your life in such a fashion that they don't even scare you anymore because you've just encountered them so many times, and you obviously they hadn't hurt you physically or anything like that, even though they've scared you. So you've kind of got, to where you don't let them drive fear into you. And over the long haul, what do you think that that it has led to, or the purpose of these things overall? I mean, what have you gotten from it, kind of thing?
Well, I think what I've taken from this leads up to now, what everyone is going through today, just as far as this spiritual battle going on, mentally, physically, emotionally, within ourselves, within our family units. You see people separating from their family, and all these little battles going in within the family unit. And also nationally and internationally, you can see the division between us as human beings, and also at the same time the connection that we have as well, whether it's because of the internet, and also just people coming to this realization. But I feel that it's all coming together now. You have talks of CERN, if you will, going on now, and the government or the cabal trying to bring these entities interdimensionally into our third dimension. I believe these beings come from that as well, from these other dimensions, fourth mainly. So I think just that knowledge and the experience comes to this point now. Just like the roar that you heard, I believe that there was a greater dark entity saying, "No, you leave him alone. He's mine to feed off of." And they got fearful, and they were like, "Okay, he's already claimed. Let's get out of here." And I believe that there are these hierarchies in the demonic world, as well as in the world of the light, that do lay claim to us, if you will. And I think that even a lot of these hauntings and things like that are these demonic beings posing as the spirits that used to be there, living off of that negative energy, because they need to have you in fear to feed, in order to feed. So you can see this battle today, and the Bible talks about it and everything like that. And I think it's a very accurate book, if you will, the Bible. So you can see the units being separated in order for these beings, these negative beings, shadow beings or whatever lies within those realms, trying to take control of people individually, especially the young and the old. And like I said, you can see it spreading from individuals to the family unit to nationally and internationally, and you see us reacting, them using fear to cause us to separate. So I think just knowing this stuff, I can speak with people or even share my story, like you even alluded to earlier, using my gifts for light, with intention, and just making people aware and kind of negating what their intentions are for us, their plans that they have for us in these end times, if you will. I like to call them or refer to them as the beginning instead of the end times. So I just think that we're about to cross over into this higher realm of understanding and information and knowledge and light. And I believe that I am a bridge or a connector, so people can shed their fear of these beings and gain knowledge of what's going on. Because once you shed their fear, they can no longer feed off of you. If we start to just love and become happier people, not get stuck on who they tell us we are, and just following our heart and saying, no, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. It doesn't matter race, color, where you're from, which religion you are. I don't really think that matters unless you have now intent in that specific religion. You know what I mean? As far as, I'm not going to give an example for any particular religion, but I think as long as, I don't care what religion you are, if you are Christ-minded, or you're a loving being, and your intent is good and it's love, then you can use that and be that and evolve with that. So that is my intentions for my gifts, and I think that's where it's leading to. This time, these times that we're in now, there's a reason for it.
Right. Yeah, Jesus said when the disciples asked him, what's the most important commandments? They were wanting to know which ones it was out of all the laws of Moses and what have you. And Jesus said to love the Lord thy God and to love one another.
Yes.
And he was very concerned about us, treating each other good. The Bible says that you to treat all men good. And then it says, especially because he was talking to the church, and he says, especially those of the household of faith, because he was wanting the church to get along. But we're supposed to be good to all people, and Scripture says really toward the end times that people would become more backbiting and hateful and despising that's what is good, and just a whole list of things and love would wax cold due to iniquity. basically. So sin and what have you in the world, according to the Bible, would cause people's love to basically wax. And I always thought that was a weird word, because you would think it would say wane cold, because a waxing moon is growing more and more full. A waning moon is growing less and less full. It didn't say wane cold, it said wax cold. Almost like there's a bitter root or something springing up because of all the division and all the things that are going on in the world. So, you know, I as a Christian, I want to try to look at those type of things and not be so dogmatic to people, because a lot of times people don't want to talk to a Christian because Christians come off so judgmental. It's like, this is the, you know, and I believe that Christianity is right. I'm not going to say that. I believe the Bible is a book of, you know, especially if you study it in the original languages and stuff. And there's a lot of debate about that kind of thing. But I believe God can bring us to, if we sit down with the like King James Version and a concordance where we can look at the Hebrew and the Greek and stuff like that, God can bring us to a knowledge of the truth through His Word, that we are not lacking anything, and through that Word we can learn how to treat other people. And that was the biggest thing that the Lord wanted us to do, is treat other people in a way that if they would have a question for us. Jesus said to do this, to obey this kind of thing, and He said, and have an answer ready for when people ask you what was the reason for this hope you have. Now, if you don't see, if you don't look at me as a Christian and say, why does he have so much hope? Then I've done something wrong. You know what I mean? I'm a very hopeful guy. I hope. You know, I'm hoping for some hope or something. I don't know. But you know what I'm saying? But sometimes it's not, when we look at what he said, we look at it the wrong way. I look at that as, when you look at me, do you see that I have a hope in such a way that you want to know what that is? You know? You say, man, what is this hope you have? There's some joy in you, and there's some hope. You seem to have this hope, like I'm not worried about the future, you know, because God is good, kind of thing. And so, in a way, I believe that Christians should look at themselves and examine themselves and see really how we affect other people and how we come off to other people. Because a lot of times people run from Christianity because we're pretty nasty people, you know, and not very nice, and we're mean sometimes, and that ought not be, you know. So, you know, when I say that you seek Christ, you know, that's up to the Lord to help you do that, you know, and because I don't want, there's going to be some people comment, why didn't you just say this? Why didn't you say that? Look, I say what I feel the Lord's led me to say. And I already said, I think you should seek Christ. And that's what I believe the Lord says for me to say to you. Because God, He reigns on He reigns over the just, the unjust, everything. So the Lord deals with you Himself. I'm not the Lord. You know what I'm saying? The Lord's the Lord over you, same as He is me. So if I sow a seed, He waters it. And I really appreciate you speaking with us today, Nigel. You have a fascinating story. I believe that you are a gifted guy. You're a gifted man, and the Lord, I believe the Lord can use you mightily in a lot of ways because you have a good attitude. You know, you come off, man, as a nice soul, dude. For real, and that can be used. That. Well, I thank you for appreciating it. You know what I'm saying? But you do come off as a very nice fella. And I can tell a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody if they have a nice spirit about them, and I feel that you do, and the Lord can use that, you know, and so thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Brenton, and I want to thank your audience, your listeners as well, and those kind words, and keep that in your mind and in your heart. That is my vibration. I'm here for people, and I appreciate everything you said.
Okay, thank you, brother. And I guess we'll wrap it up from here. So everybody out there in YouTube land, I ask that you subscribe, share these videos, be nice in the comments. I don't want to have to ban anyone. Remember, especially all those who are naysayers or Christian or whatever, just have manners and subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you on the next video. God bless.